Welcome to Center Stage. I'm your host, Steve Summers. The Alzheimer's Association was founded in 1980 by a group of family caregivers and individuals who recognized the need for an organization that would unite caregivers and provide support to those facing Alzheimer's and advance research into the disease itself. It would end up being Jerome H. Stone, the founding president, who would be the initial visionary of the Alzheimer's movement when his wife Evelyn was diagnosed with the disease in 1970. Now, during that time, we had very little information about Alzheimer's, as well as limited information from the medical community. But with the drive and the determination, it would be Mr. Stone that would take the silent disease and create this global conversation and what we see today with millions of people affected by Alzheimer's and all other dementia as well. So fast forward to 2020 with us to talk more about what is going on these days with the Alzheimer's Association is the Director of Communications of the Connecticut chapter, Kristen Cusato. Kristen, it's so great to have you on.
Thank you so much, Steve, for having me. I appreciate it.
First off, I have to admit, Kristen, I was absolutely shocked to learn that 50 million people worldwide are living with this disease, with almost 6 million in this country alone, Americans who are living with Alzheimer's. Do I have that right?
You have that right, and that's only the folks that we know. We still have a giant push out there for education, for knowing what the 10 signs are, for knowing when to take your memory concerns to a doctor so that you do get diagnosed. Early diagnosis is very important to plan for this disease. So those are just the folks we know.
I want to ask you probably the most asked question that I think a lot of people want to know is what is the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia? And is dementia also accounted for in the some 6 million people here in America?
It's just Alzheimer's. So if you think about what dementia is, it's an umbrella term, okay? Dementia is the symptoms. Dementia is what you experience, right? And then there are things that cause that experience. The experience of dementia is, and some of the things that a lot of people are familiar with, yes, it is a memory-robbing disease. So you do sometimes forget how to do things, how to do simple activities of daily living. It's a processing disease. So toothbrush, and does the toothpaste go on top, or do you put it in before the tooth? You know, what goes in the mouth first, or how do you brush your hair? How do you make a pot of coffee? It's a processing disease. And you're also going to forget potentially how to come back from the store, or how to get to your home that you've lived in for 20 years. So there are a lot of different signs and symptoms of dementia. Alzheimer's is the disease that causes dementia. And then there are other types as well. There's a type called Lewy body, which my mother had, unfortunately. There's a type called vascular. There's a type called frontotemporal. So they all present a little bit differently and all cause the dementia experience.
You know, there's so many personal stories. I know that you could share yourself about your experiences with your mother with Lewy body. That was quite a process that you went through, right?
Oh, absolutely. My mother was my best friend and my biggest supporter. So when she was diagnosed with some sort of memory issues, we didn't know what was happening, but she kept falling, and she was the one who forgot how to make a pot of coffee, you know, something she'd done every day for 40 years, say. And she was diagnosed with a type of dementia at the age of 61, which is young. You know, typically, although there's no typically, most of the folks are diagnosed over the age of 65, so 61. But there are people who are diagnosed in their 30s and 40s and 50s now, unfortunately, as well. So my life entirely changed. I was doing something completely different. I was a news broadcaster in my life as a career, and then shifted gears. I was living in San Diego, came back to Connecticut, and started to take care of my mom. And it was sad and beautiful and all the adjectives that you need to put together, but I was really pleased to be able to be there for her and be there with her when she passed away. So, and then that's really what turned me into being a communicator for the Alzheimer's Association.
So many family members are affected by this. Many watching right now are actually going through this process themselves. I remember a point in time as well, being a family member of someone who had Alzheimer's, my grandmother. I'll never forget. I think the part that affected me more so is her not remembering who I was or who her son was, which was my father. And I think that's hard. But you know, I firmly believe through all this, there is a bright shimmering light, and that is folks like you and the Alzheimer's Association together. And those of you who are watching, you can go to the website right now. It's alz.org. You know, there's so many different ways that your organization, Kristen, is involved in. And probably the most touching are the individual state chapters. If you go to the website, you can actually pull up the state chapters. I know you have one there. It's just phenomenal. And I was watching some of the videos that you guys produce, and I was just amazed by the out support that you guys offer from group programs, fostered not only community awareness, but educational outreach as well for families who are just starting the journey with someone or a loved one with Alzheimer's. Tell us a little bit more about that outreach.
Yeah, the Alzheimer's Association is there for people who are concerned about the disease, for people who have the disease, for caregivers, for those who are concerned about their brain health, for those who have already lost their person and want to be empowered to make some sort of difference in research and advocacy. I mean, we're really, really involved in the entire community. And one of the biggest things we do is offer support to the families, as you mentioned, Steve, going through it right now. So we have an 800 number, which is so crucial that I would love to share. It's a 24/7 helpline that people can call, obviously, anytime, day or night, with any question about dementia. It can be something like, hey, is there a doctor in my town who deals with this? To, it's 3 in the morning and my mother has her bags packed and she wants to go home and yet she is home. How do I deal with that? So the number is 1-800-272-3900, and that number is available to anyone at any time to just vent or just to find out some really crucial information. But in addition, and thank you for mentioning our website, which is alz.org, we have all these classes that are all free. Everything's free. Classes on what are the 10 signs? When do I take my concerns to a doctor? Or advanced, how do I communicate with somebody who has this disease? Or how do I keep my brain healthy? What are some of the things I can do now to potentially reduce my risk of cognitive decline later on? And then we have all the support groups. We have people who are spouses and they get together and discuss and share ideas and also vent, right? What a support group is like. We have support groups for people with the disease. They can share about what it's like maneuvering this new normal for them. We have support groups for children of, all sorts of different support groups and a lot of activities as well. And what's very, very important is the fundraising that we do, because we are a nonprofit and we do several fundraisers a year to raise money to continue that care and support, to continue that helpline, and also to continue research. We know research is so important. There's no cure right now. There are some treatments that deal with symptoms, but it would be great, and there are some treatments in the pipeline, but research is needed to get to those treatments, potentially disease modifying, and also to eventually find a cure.
Kristen, since 1970, I know a lot of research has gone into this, and the information you shared is fantastic. What have you seen transpire in terms of the evolution, if you would, of the Alzheimer's Association from 1970 to 2020 now, as far as research? Can you kind of give us a snapshot of what you guys have been able to do after all these years?
Sure. In research, as far as that's concerned, back when we began, we had just 1 or 2 chapters. Now we have, I think, 78 chapters across the country. So anywhere you are, you can go to alz.org and you can find out where your local resources are, and we're all trained and we all have the same information. We all teach those great classes to folks. So that is amazing. And especially now, a lot of things are virtual because that's kind of where we are right now in the world, but all of our classes and support groups and et cetera are online. So they are easy to access for you. You don't even have to drive. So that's the good part in that regard. As far as research is concerned, I think if you look back years ago, what did we think this was? The word was senile, right? The word was senility.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a thing. What does this mean? And does it happens to everybody? Well, it doesn't happen to everybody. Not everyone gets Alzheimer's. The numbers are staggering. It's 1 in 3 people over the age of 85 who has sort of dementia. Yeah. And so age is obviously your biggest risk factor, but now we know some other things. Steve, we know other things that could be risk factors for dementia, and that is diabetes, okay? That is having some sort of head injury, right? So kind of recovering from something like that. Mm-hmm. Having your blood pressure be very high. So these are things that we know now that we can actually do some things, as I mentioned before, to reduce our risk of cognitive decline. We also, because of all the research that's going on all across the globe. I mean, we have this wonderful conference that's coming up at the end of July. It's called the Alzheimer's Association International Conference, also going to be online, where 6,000 researchers, we normally would all be together and share data and share information. And it's just so interesting. The brains and the brainchild, the information that is in that conference is just amazing, because people are looking at everything from how does inflammation affect this disease? How is this disease different between men and women? There are also so many different factors, and we're so glad that so many different researchers are coming together to try to find answers for us.
Which leads to the next thing. Obviously, as we hear about all of these things that you guys have done over the years, people want to know how they can get involved. If you see purple, and you see a little bit of it probably in the studio, I'm wearing a little bit here. You could call it purple, or the closest thing. That means June is Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month, and we know that the Alzheimer's Association has many contributing levels, from support to research. Millions get involved every year during the summertime. This is a little bit different this year, right, Kristen, because of social distancing. So how can those watching the show get involved in the Longest Day program, which, by the way, is coming up June 20th, right?
The Longest Day, it's amazing. It's a do-it-yourself fundraiser, and you can do it literally any day of the year. But we talk about it around the longest day, because the longest day of the year, the summer solstice, the 20th, we say it's really the longest day for caregivers and those with the disease every day, right? So it's really that everyone is dealing with this all the time. So it's a fundraiser that you can do what you love. Turn your passion into a purpose. I'm holding, one of my friends is going to go live and play music, and that's going to be my fundraiser. Other people are doing virtual car caravans. Someone else is doing a Wii bowling, raise money that way. Other people are baking and then kind of shipping or dropping off on doorsteps if you make a donation. So to find out how to get involved in that way, and all the money goes to care and support and research, as I had mentioned, it's alz.org/thelongestday, one word. So that's our summer fundraiser, but we have our big fundraiser in the fall, which is all these beautiful flowers that are behind us.
Yes.
And that is the Walk to End Alzheimer's. And you guys probably heard about that, because there are more than 600 across the country every year. And it's where thousands and thousands of people gather, and everybody gets a flower. And the flowers of different colors represent different things. So I would have the purple flower because I lost my mom. Steve, your grandmother, the purple flower.
Yes.
The yellow flower is for caregivers. The blue flower is if you have the disease, and there's some oranges back there, and that is for supporters of the disease. And it's just a beautiful ceremony where everyone holds up their flowers and everyone gets together. It's going to be a little different this year. Not exactly sure what it's going to look like. We can't gather in the thousands. That's not safe right now in the time of COVID. But we will be walking. We will be gathering. We certainly all are pushing the mission forward, and we are raising money to continue to satisfy our vision, which is a world without Alzheimer's and all other dementia. So that is alz.org/walk to get involved in your local walk.
Director of Communications for the Connecticut chapter of Alzheimer's Association, Kristen Cusato, thank you so much for being on the program today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you, everyone. Continue to keep up the good fight. It's tough, it's challenging, but we are here for you always.
If you're an activities director or residence program director of a senior community, we want to hear from you. Join the conversation on our Facebook page to share ideas and more. It's your Facebook page, and we'd love to hear from you. Just look for the logo or drop by our webpage at seniorentertainmentnetwork.com to learn more about our special music shows and more. Thanks for watching.